Allahu Akbar. So let me just get all of this firing up. Bismillah. Right. Just gonna check all of this is live. Right. Okay. All right. So Bismillah, inna alhamdulillah wa kafah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulih al-Mustafa wa ala ibadihi alladhina irtada wa man bihudahum ihtada wa bi athari ahli al-Madinah iqtafa wa ba'd فسلام الله على القوم أهلا وسهلا بكم ومرحبا يا جماعة الله أكبر. People, a new year of barakat, khairat wa rahmat. Allahu Akbar. Wow. 2026. Allahu Akbar. How right, ahlan wa sahlan bikum. Ya Jama'a. Where have you been? Right. As we begin, some people are tuning in. You can spread the love. I thought with a new year, we must have a stream. I can connect with you guys, say salam, see your some of your blessed faces and your presence. Allahu Akbar. Yeah, and I guess it's that time of year that people worldwide, humanity, for the most part, is united in a reflective consciousness, albeit momentary, but it is. People reflect, they resolve to do things, they make plans, anticipations, expectations, ambitions. And this is what life is, in essence. This is what life is. And it's what on every and any such occasion, embrace it with that positivity, that that asinu dhannakum billah, that great things are always going to happen to me. There will be countless blessings, abundance, joy. Yeah, and you will find more often than not people who have that expectation from Allah. They go on to find that. They go on to, such people are often always encountering blessings. Yeah. So, and it often comes back just to the mindset that we have. This world is a simulation of sorts. It's a very dream-like state. And I love how Dr. Rupert Spira, he gives that explanation, that he says nature has left hints within itself. And that is our dreams. You see, when we dream, we experience a reality. We experience matter, people, sensations, perception, emotions, events, causalities. We experience all of these to the, as real as they can possibly be experienced, only to awaken to realize that, it didn't exist here in this dunya. That doesn't detract from its experience. The dream was the dream was just as real, just as meaningful, if we can recall it. You see, that is the challenge, that our dreams evade us as we come to our wakeful state. That is the clue of this world, that this world is actually very dreamlike. It doesn't truly exist in the way we think it exists. So you think about it, in such a reality, where would you hide the control pads? Where would you put the cheat codes? Because you know there will be cheat codes in a simulation. You'll hide them in the mind of the people. You see, so as they alter their mindset, their reality starts to change. Allahu Akbar. Right, let's see who has tuned in. Allahu Akbar. From Malaysia. Yes, salam. Allahu Akbar. Likewise, a blessed, happy, Mubarak New Year to you all. Yeah. Right. So, whilst people are, you share some thoughts, and really, I'm here to I'll share the link shortly, and people can jump on and share their thoughts. And till then, I've been looking into some. I do love certain areas of research, certain areas of always broadening my knowledge. And in addition, and it all really complements the deen, it all comes back to the deen, but especially 5 P's, people, 5 P's. That is philosophy, psychology, physics, poetry, and perplexity. Perplexity, the hayra, the mysticism. That these things, they really, there's something to these fields of exploration. And I was thinking that there's many people who never really experience or even reflect with such depth on these topics. And for a moment I was contemplating, would their life be easier? Because ignorance in one way is bliss. But then I thought, Toba, Toba. I thought the blessings that Allah has hidden in this sense of knowing, the kind of dynamic enjoyment, the ladha of this dunya. Allahu Akbar. What would be the point of having lived if one hadn't experienced, such pleasures that truly, there are pleasures of the body and there are pleasures of the soul. And the pleasures of the soul are the intellectual pursuits. And so, and by soul there, because the psyche is ultimately a facet of the soul. So I was reflecting on some topics, and I was reflecting on a broad theme of truth. And what is truth? And the more we look into something, the grainier it becomes. And from a distance, it may appear very simple, but as we draw near, like, what is actually truth? Is it something that humans are entirely even capable of? And what does that even mean? When I was listening to some lectures, especially within Lacanian psychoanalysis, and Lacan, he had said, that the truth that the truth speak. And this had kind of, and there's all these, this whole debate that emerges of truth. That what exactly is it? And if we were to say, well, al-haq, in Arabic, al-haq, and I suppose al-haq is Allah, because that is how Allah identifies himself. That's one of his names, al-haq. So in that sense, one would argue that, well, if Allah is the truth, humans would never be truly capable of the truth. Because if it is Allah, then it could never truly or rightfully or entirely be expressed, or could it? So, yeah. And I know at one stage you might say, well, the truth is simply a statement, more or less correspondence theory of Aristotle. I say, oh, I'm holding a cup, and therefore I'm holding a cup, and that is true. Sure, I mean, to an extent that, it corresponds with what you are experiencing. But many things don't correspond. And, something may be perceptibly accurate or maybe not, for us to kind of go along with it as truth. Because, you have, let's say in the Quran, about the munafiqun, Allah says that these hypocrites, they come to you, to the messenger, yashhadu annaka Rasulullah. They testify that you are Rasulullah. Wallahu yashhadu innahum lakadhib. Yet Allah testifies that they do not speak the truth. But that statement did correspond according to correspondence theory. So, yet here Allah says it is not the truth. And so, this question of what, so let's say a person was to ask you how they are. How do they, how do I look? Or what do you think of me in terms of, let's say somebody asked you to, how do you perceive them in terms of beauty? Like, how do they look? Now, let's say for argument's sake, you thought they're ugly. It's a horrible, mean thing. But that's precisely my point. Now, you wouldn't say that you're ugly. Or let's say it was a piece of art that they'd done. Now, even if you perceived it to be ugly, you wouldn't say that it is ugly. Now, you would say, oh, yeah, it's good, and it's like this. Because you see, to say it is ugly is not just to say what you feel, but it's more. There is almost an insult that is added. So it is greater than the sum of its parts. It is not just merely the sum of its parts, it is greater than the sum of its parts. So it's not just 2 plus 2 equals 4. You've resulted with an additional expression. So it kind of brings us back to this, the human expression. And when we express things, we use language, which is limited, and we conceal yet reveal, but we don't entirely. So all of these things fall into our sense of that there is a kind of dynamism which we understand as a kind of good enough truth. To borrow the phrase from Winnicott, the psychoanalyst, that this good enough truth is what humans deal with. Yeah, it is a fascinating. One could say, well, you could take the verse of the Quran where Allah is citing and bringing the moment where Allah addressed Musa alayhi salam. And Allah says, Innani ana Rabbul Alamin. And I believe in the other, Innani Rabbul Alamin. Innani Allahu Rabbul Alamin. Or Inni Allahu Rabbul Alamin. But there's a slight variation in both verses, as in they're not symmetrical. And that's not to say, well, which one is it then that Allah said? But it's to say that it's all true. That if you're to say, well, no, well, either it's said in this way or it was said in this way, so which one is true? They are both true. And that goes to show, well, that's because you misunderstand what you mean by truth. So, yeah, this makes us reflect. And sometimes maybe a person might recall an event or a memory. But maybe some parts of it they, misrecall. I remember reading Travels with Epicurus, and in it, what's the philosopher's name? Is it Daniel Klein? But he's speaking about when, and he's an old man at that stage in his 70s, and he's reminiscing about this thing he'd heard and said when he was a student at university, and he engaged I believe it was Eric Erickson. He's speaking about a lecture from Eric Erickson or something like this, and how he said something in the response that the professor had said. Now, at a certain point in his story, he says, well, or in the book, he says, well, somebody once says to him, are you sure you said that, or wasn't it your friend sitting next to you who asked the question? And then he addressing the audience says, well, even if it were that he misremembered and remembered himself as the voice, the articulating voice, does it make it any less true? And it's a fascinating discussion, you see. So, the other day, I was listening to one of John Elia's poems. And this line, that this couplet from it, that I'd heard for years now. I'd heard it, misheard it all these years. Right. So, John Elia's very famous ghazal, the one where he says that ये जो आसमां को तकता है तू, कोई रहता है आसमां में क्या? This very famous ghazal of his. It became, ground, like, it's just so viral. Everybody knows it, and he has this. There's so many iconic lines in it that अब तो मुझे कोई टोकता भी नहीं, ऐसा होता है कुछ खानदान में क्या. He has these whole, but there was this line in it that I had heard from years ago, but apparently misheard. And he says in it that मेरी हर बात बेअसर ही रही. That नक्स है कुछ मेरे बयान में क्या. That my every statement went ineffective. It didn't, it didn't render any. It was useless. Every expression, मेरी हर बात बेअसर ही रही. नक्स है कुछ मेरे बयान में क्या. Is there an imperfection in my articulation? Now, here's the thing. I had misheard this all these years to mean that मेरी हर बात दिल असर ही रही. I thought he'd said that every statement of mine affected every heart. मेरी हर बात दिल असर ही रही. नक्स है कुछ मेरे बयान में क्या. You see, so is there something wrong with the way I articulate? That why is it that every time I speak, that I have such an effect on people? One could say, what comes to mind is Midas is the touch of Midas. Whatever he touched, the Greek tragedy turned to gold. Or Oscar Wilde's that there are only two tragedies in life. One is not getting what you want, and the other is getting what you want. Because that's what's happening here. And so I just a couple of days ago was listening to his poetry, and it was written, and John Elia, and it said, Meri har baat be-asar hi rahi. And I thought, damn, is that what he said? So, Meri har baat dil asar hi rahi is how I had remembered it. Now, does that make this poem any less true? And I thought that is surely in my perception made it so much more effective, almost the human tragedy that one could say is imagine getting what you want. Now what? Allahu Akbar. Yeah, khair. I thought I'd reflect and share some philosophical discussions with you guys. I mean, अब यार आप लोगों के साथ शेयर नहीं करूंगा, so what am I going to do then? If I don't share it with you guys, I'm just going to look into a mirror, talk to the wall. There's one of our teachers when years back, Sheikh Abdullah al-Mantiqi Saab, Allah bless him. and he used to teach us Sahih Muslim. And I was the nominated, self-nominated, the what would you call the person? I suppose the kind of, so you had a lead pupil or a lead student that would read the text aloud in class. And so I was that person in his class. Now, he had this thing that he would begin the lesson in Arabic, and he would articulate the madhabs and the differences, and he would do all of that in Arabic. And then he wanted you to not only recall what he said, but recall it verbatim. I mean, that's taking the mick, really. I mean, one is to recall what I'm saying, but to recall it word for word. Like if I use the preposition to, you say to. If I said and, you say and. If I said then. And I remember he would do this Arabic. And some of the, especially the local students, they would be well perplexed. And this, and he would often say, when he'd get wound up, he would say, "Acha, eh baba." He would say, "Ye jo soch rahe ho ki Arabi jha raha hu," that I'm just here, just kind of brushing off my Arabic to all of you. He goes, "अबे, तुम्हारे सामने नहीं कहूँ तो क्या बस कंडक्टर के सामने बोलूँगा? Like, where else am I supposed to speak my Arabic?" He's like, I can hardly sit on a bus in Karachi and speak Arabic, so obviously I'm going to speak it to you guys. So I guess the tragedy is the same here. Where else do I share these philosophical musings of mine and these meanderings except with you guys? So, Allah, Allah. Right now, khair, let me see, what are people saying? Allah, some people. Let me share. I don't know what. Let me share this. Where did it go? Yeah, so whilst I share this, what I will say whilst I'm doing that is that, you know, with these things like New Year's and any look, life is a series of excuses and opportunities. That's all life is. Excuses to get things done, opportunities to do things. That's all it is. Seize any and every moment you can to experience that. If you can make memories, if you can, because people, you know, this discussion, I mean, these things are really so outdated. Um, but people being unsure that, oh, it's New Year's, am I allowed to even see this as a new year, in almost in one could say a celebratory sense. Obviously, it's an academic calendar new year. Nobody's going to deny that. But, you know, can I see it as something? Maybe I should do something. Maybe I shouldn't. Is it haram? Is it? And look, if people out there believe these things are haram, if they do, I don't, you know, there's all sorts of people that believe all sorts of things. If a person if you believe something, it is for you to believe. It is not for you to assert or force your beliefs onto other people. People believe, you know, if that is your belief, sure. I'm not really addressing you then. I'm not trying to convince you. I'm not trying to, you know, you have your belief. But to other people, these are moments of reflection. They are moments to create memories as well. They're an excuse. They're an opportunity to gather one's resolve, to share experiences, memories, maybe with your children, maybe with your family, maybe with your friends. This is what life is about. It's not this, and Iman is not this fragile, this uber lightweight substance that we're dealing with. And I was reflecting on this. I was thinking that in many ways it's a shame that, or it's definitely an enigma, that if we reflect, and I'm possibly much older than many of you watching this now, up to yaar, in this old age, right? So if, let's say, my parents' generation, people who came to the UK probably, late 60s, early 70s, mid 70s, people like that, that lived here when there wasn't really a sense of community here, when they knew almost nothing, very little about Islam, when I don't think there were any masjids around at that point, and very few people prayed, very few people. Now, I'm just describing it. I'm not saying I'm not passing judgment on that. I'm just describing they were just working. As they started to settle here, they brought their families, they set up little masjids, we went into the 80s, people, young Muslims were born now in this country for the first time. To that first settled community, their faith was never shaken by these things. That they didn't see these things they just recognized them as culture. That we're in a different country, sure, there's. And the irony is, decades later, we now have so much Islamic resources and knowledge and lectures and books and masajid and community, but we have such a kind of phobia of losing our iman at every step and stage. Oh my God, I might, do kufar. Oh my God, I might do kufar. Our belief in Allah is not that weak that it would, that we all of a sudden stop believing in Allah. So these things, like I said, life is all about excuses and opportunities. And by excuses, I mean an excuse to turn it into an opportunity. So, you can share some moments, share some memories, share some experiences. Khair. Right, let's. Have I shared the link? I've heard, by the way, since I'm sharing the link, did somebody here say chuff? Is that what? There was a comment? Are you speaking about the Peer Saab? There was an incident in Birmingham. Sheikh Asrar had turned up to where the Chuf Chuf Peer Saab had come. And I believe, I watched a clip where Sheikh Asrar said he's just returned from the debate with the Shia. On a separate note, I have been asked to possibly review that by some friends. I don't know. I'm in two minds. I'll watch it first, reflect, and then maybe I'll review it. I'll have to see. Depends. I'll have to watch it. You see, I don't really like these kind of debates, Shia Sunni kind of. I feel these things only fragment our communities. It's different with atheism and theism because the whole world, humanity, is going through these shifts and stages of consciousness. And to speak about the proofs for the existence of God or have that challenged or to discuss certain things, I find very interesting and enjoyable. But the whole Shia Sunni thing, it is what it is. Most Muslims, let's say they're born Sunni, now we are Sunni. Okay. And then most Shia are just born Shia, and you will get some crossovers. I get that, but really, this kind of debate, because the issue is it kind of nests or it's anchored in so much emotion that I feel it only does harm because you're evoking so much emotionality that, yeah, so I just don't, but I will consider, I will have to watch the debate and then consider. I did, somebody sent me there was the preconditions to the debate or something, and I did watch a lot of that. Now, obviously, Sheikh Asrar, I know, and and f- and in recent years, at least, I have actually Sheikh Asrar and I have spoken on very good terms, and very respectfully and things like that. And Sheikh Hassan Qadri from the Shia, I have actually met him as well, and I met him a few years ago. He came to visit me with there was like a delegation of a group of Shia, and there was some scholars amongst them, like very academic scholars. There's a Sheikh Imran Ali, I believe his name is. He was one that had graduated from Iran and from the Hawzat and studied here. Very, an outstanding intellectual. He lives in Canada, I believe, Toronto, and Sheikh Hassan was with him and a few other people from the Shia community. And we must have, we had a very um, engaging evening. I mean, right from the evening till the morning, we were sitting discussing dialogical. It's a dialogue. It's mainly between, I suppose, Sheikh Imran and me, and then there were other people involved, and it wasn't just. But it was overall a very pleasant exchange. It wasn't something. I mean, we disagreed. One could say staunchly on our opinions, but it was overall. It wasn't a kind of rude or anything. And my experience of the brothers, including Sheikh Hassan at that time, uh, was, it was wonderful. It was, and every person had their own struggle. Every person was going through something very, their own challenge in life. And so, khair, but the preconditions, I wasn't really, I saw a bit of that. And I saw this thing where Sheikh Hassan had said, um, oh, you can't say radiallahu an, otherwise I will leave the debate. I'm not sure if that happened during the debate because I haven't watched the debate, but I did find that a very disappointing to even hear that being put forward as a condition. And to be fair, in all fairness, I think there was Sayyid Ali there as well, who I have, very good communication with. We speak every now and then from the Shia community. I don't know if he still is with the channel Bayatul Ghadir or not, but many years ago he was with it. I don't know if he still is, but once again, very good akhlaq. And I think on the clip he was saying he was kind of pressing for, we don't need to have a condition like that. But I don't know what came of it in the end. I did think, look, there is a difference between a kind of like an insult and a praise. Now, somebody could, from his Sheikh Hassan's argument, well, you might be praising some people who we see in negative light. But in all fairness, many of the Ayatollahs, like I'm sure many, like from the top of my head, Ayatollah Sistani and a few others, they've given the fatwa that to insult or swear at or insult or curse the Rumuz of Ahl Sunnah, the symbols of Ahl Sunnah, is haram. Now, I'm not saying all the Shia follow that fatwa, but this is from the Shia as well. But even, I don't mean to insult, but at the very least, if of obviously Sunnis are going to adorn with praise the companions. So once again, this kind of a debate, I don't know where it will just rile up emotions, and is this something khair? I will contemplate that. Right. I was speaking about the Chuf Chuf Pir Saab incident, and Sheikh Asrar turned up, and from what I saw, and the Pir Chuf Chuf Saab has kind of disappeared. See, the thing is, I don't know whether Chuf Chuf Pir Saab, I don't even know his name, so I'm not trying to insult him. This is just what he's become known as, Pir Chuf Chuf Saab. I'm not saying it in a way to be insulting to him. Because look, maybe in his heart, he believes he's doing something helpful. And many people who do go to him see him in this way. And obviously, there is the placebo effect. And I'm sure in that way, many people do feel they are being helped. But this is the problem, isn't it? That you see, there comes a point where you see when this thing of where the deen then starts getting ridiculed, and khair, each to their own. I don't, more than the Pir Saab, I feel it's really people who need to be educated. Because the Pir Saab, people are going to be out there selling whatever they want to sell. Everybody's going to set up shop. Now, the question is, why do you go to certain things? And because I guess it's that kind of herd mentality, isn't it? That I think, because we think, this, that. Or as Lacan said, that, the mimesis, isn't it? The whole mimetic experience that desire is the desire of the other. That's what it is, isn't it? What the mimetic mimesis, right? So the whole mimetic, where you get the word, I guess, meme from. I know we mean meme nowadays to mean something funny, but the original word meme. So desire is the desire of the other. So what people desire, we find desirable. And that's how a lot of human desire actually works. And that's part of the symbolic order. So khair, right, let's see. A few people I feel have joined. Let me just check. Somebody said, right, let me share this. All right. All right. We've got here Fahad. Assalamu alaikum.
Mufti, Happy New Year.
Likewise, a happy and blessed New Year for you too. May Allah make it one of rahmah and wus'ah and khair. Ameen, thumma ameen. How are
Thank
you doing,
you.
Fahad? What's going on?
Thank you very much. I'm at the moment just doing a bit of work, as you guys can see.
Allahu Akbar. working away, even on.
Yeah, that's it. Earning that money, trying to get a house deposit together.
You see that in many ways, the pursuit of something keeps us going.
Yeah.
It really, in many ways, it really does. And that people need a why. They need a pursuit, even if it's something they feel they would rather not have. So even a struggle, whatever the struggle, whether it's to work, whether it's to do something, in many ways it keeps people alive. And there's a fascinating experiment done with mice, actually, the Universe 25, and I implore people to research it and just watch it on YouTube, where they made this paradise for mice. Everything they could want was there. And at first the mice flourish, and then they get to a point where everything is turned on its head, and the mice, they it's just chaos. The mothers start killing their infants. They start, it just turns into like a hellhole that they had to stop the experiment. And one of the reasons was that this Lagrangian point, this kind of balancing point of survival, was removed, where things were just all provided or given, because it takes away, doesn't it? There's I was reading was it yesterday? I was reading about it was to do with Mirza Engineer from Pakistan. He'd come out from prison and he'd given some interviews, and it was to do with his podcast interview or something. But he was speaking about the blasphemy laws in Pakistan and how they're wrongly abused and everything. And he gave this example of this bishop in Pakistan, so a Christian Pakistani bishop that was wrongly imprisoned and given the kind of death penalty, but they didn't kill him, but they gave him, the judge had to give him this penalty. So he says that, and the judge knew he hadn't actually done it, but he felt that if he didn't give him that sentence, then the public might just turn on the judge. So the judge did it, and then the judge turns up afterwards and apologizes to him in private and says, look, I'm really sorry, I had to sentence you this way, and I know you haven't really blasphemed, but I have no other choice. And so at the time, because there was a moratorium on death penalty in Pakistan, so he had life imprisonment. So he, for many years, fights his appeal. And I was reading that I think after something like, was it 15 or 18 years, something like 15 years, I think, he finally gets this appeal through, and he's released. And as he's released, 3 days later, he dies a natural death. He's quite relatively old, and he dies a natural death, like 3 days after his release.
Wow.
And that's beside, I mean, in addition to being an absolute tragedy and a travesty of the laws there, but also it's reflective of this will to fight for something and, to kind of survive. And as that will is finally kind of gives way, because now you've got it, you go into this mode of, people, and you'll find that isn't just there, it's in many stories, that people fight till the end and then they just kind of just pass. And then, not in that sense, but reflective of the endeavor, a proverb I learned many years ago when I learned Arabic, that they were speaking about. It's actually a fable, based on animals and things, and it speaks of the cow, and it says, "Fi simniha dhabhuha," that the cow is complaining about kind of working hard, and it said, you see, but it would rather just chill and just eat and graze but by doing so, it would just fatten itself, and by fattening itself, it would just get slaughtered and eaten. But not to put a somber twist on that, but coming back to how have you been, and what's been preoccupying your precious thoughts here, Fahad?
Is it okay if I could have two questions, one for me and
well, look, you just
one for Denise. Denise is actually out doing something. If I could ask two.
Oh yeah, sure, go for it. Go for it.
Say again.
Yeah, of course. For you, Fahad, I'll disconnect the stream and just do a whole live stream.
I'll ask one. I'd love that more than anything.
I for you, of course, I say all of this, and then I say all of this, and then I just disconnect Fahad's call. No, fire away, fire away.
Okay. All right. I'll ask a contemporary one that it probably affects Muslims all over the West. So let me explain this to you, and this will probably resonate
It is
with you in the
lagging a
UK
bit.
as well.
Yeah,
Tesco and
sure.
Aldi and things like that. Yeah. Yeah. So basically what happens in Australia when you go to your supermarkets, they have
Yeah,
meat and they get their meat from halal suppliers, right? If you're following me. So
yeah.
what the ulama have said in Australia, the reason why it's doubtful or not permissible to eat that meat, even though it's coming from a halal supplier, to cut the beef, to cut the chicken, to package it up. Can I please ask? I did look at something on Monday Nights with Mufti on your webpage. I couldn't find something. I found something similar, but maybe can you elaborate on this and what's the Malik
I don't understand the question. So it is halal or it isn't
opinion
halal?
on this?
It is halal.
Oh no, okay. I'll repeat
It's
my. Yeah, it's
it's
actually
coming.
halal meat from the from the
So
supplier.
what is the point of contention? So what's the contention? If it is halal, why the contention?
Halal meat. Yeah, the point of contention is they use the same, like the supermarket butcher, they use the same knife or the same utensil to cut the pork, to cut the beef, halal beef, and to cut the pork and to package it up to sell it to the customers in retail. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. I mean,
Does that make
look,
sense?
this. Yeah. Of course, I understand now. You see, this level of kind of obsessive detail is
Yeah,
not sought after by the Sharia. And a fine example of that is that look, the
yeah,
so I mean, two examples jump straight at us. One, the
yep,
life and the seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself, that he would accept da'wah, he would accept invitations, food invites from Jewish people. We're allowed to eat the meat from Jewish and Christian, truly Christian and truly Jewish people. We're allowed to eat their meat. Now, Christians are
yep,
allowed to eat pork according to their religion. So if you went to a Christian's house, it's very likely they use the same utensils.
yep,
So the Quran, if this was to be an issue, it would have addressed it. The Prophet himself, when he went to these invites, he would have addressed this issue. He didn't, because surely when they're inviting him and they're non-Muslims and they're cooking their meat, surely they're using the same utensils. In fact, Imam Malik's fatwa was that he wasn't really fond of marrying Christian women. I don't mean for himself, obviously not, but he for the other people in general. The reason being is because, and this is the same fatwa by Imam Ahmad as well, by the way, just in case some people of a Salafi persuasion are listening. So, and to them, obviously, Imam Ahmad is possibly much more of a somebody they tend to follow. That the fatwa is that Imam Malik said the reason he didn't like those interfaith marriages was because you have no right to prevent her from eating pork and keeping pork and cooking pork at home. And he said, and you have no right to prevent her from keeping alcohol at home because that's her faith and her freedom. So he said that, and because you have no right to prevent her from doing it, doesn't mean she will do it, but she has the right to do it. And he said, then there's a likelihood that your children may grow up eating that and drinking that. So this is why he said he didn't like the whole interfaith marriages. Now, he could have just said, no, people think it's all patriarchy and all this kind of stuff back projected. He could have just said, you tell her behave, watch yourself, or the backhand, or none of this. He never said. He said that you have no right. It is not permissible for you in Islam to prevent her from something which she has a right to in her religion, and she's not a Muslim. So this is the same fatwa endorsed by Imam Ahmad as well. So for the same reason why he also discouraged the the interfaith, because they have what he felt was an inviolable right, an inalienable right to eat pork and have pork and cook pork at home. And he felt that, as a Muslim, you don't really want that happening around your kids, so it's better not to do it. What would have been easier was their fatwa to say you force them not to do it. But actually, they didn't say that. They said that, you should not embark upon that path then. So that's very clear. The other thing is that, this thing of becoming obsessive. There is a narration in the Muwatta of Imam Malik where Sayyidina Umar radiallahu an they approach this kind of small, one could say like a pond. It's like a pond somewhere. And as they're there, some of the companions go to drink water. And so one of the companions has this thought that, wait a minute, actually maybe wild animals come and drink water from here. So maybe they've done hunting, maybe they've got like foul blood on their mouth, maybe they come and take a leak or poo in this kind of thing. Like, we don't know, like in this pond, like I don't know, like maybe they do stuff like here. So he says, so he gets this, even though the water seems fine, but it's a pond and you can't necessarily see right through it to the base. So he says, Ya sahib al-hawd. He calls out to the owner of the area they're on, the kind of field. It wasn't a field, but that area, and who owns the pond as well, because it's his thing. So he says, Ya sahib al-hawd, oh, the one who owns this pond. He said, Hal taridu hawdak al-siba? Do wild predatory animals, hunting animals, do they come and drink from this pond? And this is in the Muwatta. So Sayyidina Umar says, before he could answer, he says, Ya la tukhbirhu. Says, don't even answer that. He says, Nahnu naridu siba wa tarituna. On God's green earth, we drink from where animals drink from, we drink from. Don't even answer this question. And the meaning of this is, and Imam Malik brings this, is because we are not mandated to be seeking out that kind of detail. And if you start seeking it out, what happens is it can become destructive. It's very kind of like an obsessive. And OCD can really grip the mind of people and destroys people. I have, even on my Patreon, there's been a few people, not the majority, but there's been a few people who have sessions with, consultations, and their lives, Allah bless them, have been riddled with waswasa, riddled with it. And it's been like, waswasa, this OCD, it can be so destructive. It can be paralytic. It paralyzes people. So we have to avoid these things at all costs. So yes, hopefully that answers the question. Yeah.
Thank you.
Somebody said
that's
here.
Perfect. Thank you.
Somebody
and for
said,
my question now.
And look, somebody said here, look, that could it be that there's blood still on this meat and so on and so forth? Look, even if there's blood on the meat, in the Christian's house where you can go to eat, he could have just cooked pork. Allah doesn't say you can, when Allah says in the Quran, you can eat from the homes of Christians, He doesn't say, oh, you have to ask them to have cooked your meal separately. That's no prerequisite. You're allowed to eat from their meat. Now, you see, this is going back into that thing. And look, even if if you're to say, well, they used a certain amount of, they used the knife, Now, there's not going to be a slice of bacon still hanging off the knife. Like, come on, let's be real. Now, even if you're to say that there's going to be some granular specks of blood, well, you're going to wash the meat anyway. You're going to boil the meat when you take it back. You're going to, we
Yes.
have to move away from this kryptonite kind of feeling of, oh my God. And let's take it to the other madhabs. Malikiya, okay, we're kind of exempt here. The other madhabs that say you can eat from the meat that dogs have hunted. Isn't the dog saliva najas, impure? So how well, you say, oh, but it's okay because we wash it. Isn't, according to the Hanafi madhab and the Shafi'i madhab, the dog saliva is najasul ayn, according to so it's najas as pork. So how, okay, the Malikiya don't believe that, because we believe all God's creatures are pure, and including dogs, including pigs. We believe that everything that is alive is pure, and you can't call anything impure that's living. But that's the school of Medina. But the other madhabs consider it to be najas. They consider it to be najasul ayn. Some of the Hanafiya consider it najasul ayn. So in that sense, you can eat the meat of a dog that's gone hunting. So what about that najasul ayn saliva that's actually entrenched inside the meat, where the dog has bitten into the meat? How do you answer that? Well, you say, oh, well, we wash it. Well, if you wash it, you could wash this. So this level of OCD behavior is not sought after by the deen. Obviously, look, if a person wants to do it, it's up to them. But it's not really sought after by the deen. Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. And for my question now.
Oh, is there another question? I forgot.
All right.
I really need to carry on. What's your question?
Is that okay, or you should have time?
No, of course. I should light up a cigar. Okay. I'm joking.
Okay, I'll shoot away. This is a little bit close to my heart, and I want you to use all your skills and all your knowledge as a Mufti to answer this, if you can, inshallah.
Close to your heart. You want it to hit close to your heart with all my skill.
Can you please champion the Iman of Abu Talib?
I have a video on that. An old video.
From Sunni sources. That's okay? Or do you need some time to do your research?
No, it's already, I have an old video on it. It is old. It's from the Monday Nights days, but I do have a video on that. And
is there any other Sunnis?
Yeah, like Qurtubi was one of them. Imam Qurtubi. There were a few people that leaned that way in saying and I said I too did lean that way after having read the research that Abu Talib, may Allah be blessed with his afterlife. It appeared to me, I was persuaded by having read the arguments that he was a believer, even if he didn't. The famous narration that he didn't say it. That people say, he said, oh, well, what will they say of me? But the evidence does appear that he was a believer. And people challenge that, I understand. And the mainstream Sunni view is that he isn't. And obviously I accept that. And I'm not here to, say people who believe that way, this, I don't know, to kind of criticize them or something. No, not at all. They have the evidences, and that's fine. But I did find that the evidences that a lot of that have been presented, and this, by the way, like I said, you'll have to watch the video, but I do cite certain Sunnis. I know from the top of my head, Imam Qurtubi, I still recall him. But there are others as well, by the way. It's not just, there are a minority, of course. Nobody's trying to say, there may even be an extreme minority if you're going to count, but I do feel that the way Abu Talib, this is why I would feel that, Abu Talib, may Allah be pleased and bless his akhirah. And, we say, may Allah forgive his shortcomings as forgive everybody's shortcomings, or forgive him. and forgive everyone, ameen. But the way he protected the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right throughout the most difficult years of the early, most difficult years of the da'wah of Islam, and he did it for a love of the Prophet, but he did protect the da'wah, so he knew what he was protecting. It's not that he didn't know, and he stood, shoulder to shoulder, and in fact, fought. I mean, not physically, but like tooth and nail, one would say, in the defense of Muslims, like Muslims. And one could argue that Islam, by some extent, survived by his service. So, is it that a person who's doing that, he knows what he's doing, and Allah is witnessing that? So, to me, that in addition to other things, are testament. And even the fact, him saying, oh, that I don't want people to say this, to mock me or whatever, if we take that narration, but he's not saying I don't believe in what you're believing in. He's just saying that, look, even if we take this narration to be the kind of the arbiter, this narration reflects that he does seem to believe, but there's this social peer pressure that he's succumbing to. It doesn't mean that he's not, like a simple thing would have been, oh, I don't even believe in your God, or I don't even believe in your faith. But he's not saying that. So, and I do have that video. It is quite old, but I'm sure you'll find it,
Yeah.
inshallah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mufti, for your time.
Sure.
And I probably went
You're
over my allotted time.
yeah. But it's a pleasure to see you as always, Fahad, and always see you smiling. Ameen. So take very good care of yourself, and we'll speak soon, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. People, that was Fahad from Down Under. And all right, some interesting questions there. Um, right, what is going on? Maliki fiqh is so interesting. It really is, I have to say, there are some just joys that one really finds themselves in, just such joyful pursuits. And one of them within the deen has to be the school of Medina. I find it just a joy. Allahu Akbar. And more often than not, has always just continued to serve me with blissful kind of amusement and wonder, really. And that's not to say you don't get ups and downs, and you won't get some Malikiya that will always be, just as challenging and just as difficult as others. You will, but you'll always find some voices of reason that really do, they really do shine. Allahu Akbar. Let me see, who do we have here, people? Hanafi fiqh, somebody said, Hanafi fiqh, I do, you know what it is? I don't know, I love Imam Abu Hanifa. I feel he is an amazing gem and star of this ummah. I do feel the problem, no, the early fiqh I feel was amazing. Hanafi fiqh was on point, the early madhab. But I feel along the way the madhab kind of got hijacked, and then what it transmuted into. Um, yeah, I'm not really keen with its final expression that we arrived at, and I feel it's almost antithetical to the great Imam Abu Hanifa. May Allah be pleased with him. That's my feeling. That's the feeling of people like Sheikh Atabek and other Hanafi as well. I'm pretty sure Sheikh Akram Nadwi and other people all feel the same, that have expressed an opinion on this matter. Right, who do we have here? Did I share that? Let me just share that. We have Fahim Ali. Oh, assalamu alaikum, Fahim. How's it going? How's it going? We can't hear you, ya Fahim. أفهمنا بصوتك. Allah, Allah. See, because Fahim is saying, who needs speech when we can just have, when we're connected through our consciousness and through our souls? Why do we? I can't hear you, by the way. I think yep, you're coming
You hear now?
through now. I can, loud and clear. Allahu
Okay.
Akbar.
Oh yeah,
Ya
I just said Happy New Year.
Fahim.
That's all I said.
Shukran. Allah bless this year for you and for all our viewers. May this be a year of much abundance, of much success and positivity. Ameen. For all our viewers. Ameen.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, Fahim, what's going on? What's preoccupying your precious thoughts? And
Yeah, so since you were talking about the Shia before, I was wondering if you knew what was going on between the the Dawa guys and Daniel Hakikachu, because they're all going after him now, especially.
no, I don't. You know, somebody was messaging me from America, and he was asking me this just yesterday, actually. That, oh, do you know about what's going on with Daniel Hakikatju? And I said, I don't. I said, I don't. So he said something about, he said about the Salafiyah, they're all going for him. He didn't say the Shia were going for him. He said,
No,
Shia,
not the Shia. I think he's defending a lot of the Shia positions. So one of them
what
being
is he
that
defending? Yeah.
So there's the belief that the Prophet had control over all the atoms in the universe, and he's saying that it's not a kufri belief. And so basically people are calling him a shirk apologist for saying that.
I mean, that statement of the Prophet ﷺ having control, I mean, what would be the kind of, like, let's say the Prophet ﷺ was granted this ability if he wanted it. I mean, either way, would it make a difference to our reality, or would it, I don't, like, what is the utility or the objective of this debate on that point?
I don't really know. I think the other one that he was defending was the 12 imams being higher than anyone except the Prophet, so higher than all the other prophets. And so
okay. Okay.
And so then, the guys like Jake Brancatella and Farid responds. They're all calling him a shirk apologist for saying it's not kufr.
Okay. Okay. I mean, I would disagree with that statement of the Shia imams being, what is it, higher than the prophets and things like that.
Yeah, all of them except the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But yeah,
see, this, I guess, this is really the challenge, isn't it? That the Shia really have, because really, you see, for the Shia, it has to always be the royal bloodline of the, even though the imams, generally speaking, within the Shia, like the Shia imams, are generally all honored and dignified and very venerated within Sunni Islam as well. And the Sunnis don't have a problem with the Shia imams. In fact, I would argue, maybe some people disagree, that Sunnis in some way are more, because they're equally venerating of all the imams, whereas the Shia, for example, 12ers, don't really give that kind of credence to, let's say, those from the Hassan lineage, or those that broke off from, before Imam Musa al-Kadhim, and they went with the Ismailiya kind of, they broke off into that. I don't think they, they don't give them the same kind of, extend the same veneration or courtesy. And in fact, I'm pretty sure they are even critical, or some people are critical of them. But hey, okay, what else do they?
the other one was doing istikhara to like Jesus. or like one of the
Wait, what?
prophets, or the Prophet Muhammad.
Doing what? Istikhara to Jesus. What does that mean?
Istighatha.
I mean, I know we.
Istighatha,
Oh,
I
istighatha
think it's Istighatha. Yeah,
to
I said it wrong.
Jesus.
Sorry. Yeah.
Jesus.
I think the example he used was I don't know, maybe like there's a difference between a Christian praying to Jesus and then someone else doing istighatha to Jesus. Like one of them would be shirk, and
What
then the
does
other one would be...
istighatha, like, give me an example so as to not misunderstand this.
Yeah, like
So give me in, like, what would it mean? Like, give me
the example he gave was maybe like a man with leprosy saying, "Oh Jesus, like please heal me," something like that.
Really? Like that?
Yeah.
I don't think any Muslim would say stuff like that. Would Muslims say stuff? You know, I do have a big problem with like, I understand. You see, there's a difference between, can we use the word maybe organic ignorance, which is like just on the ground, a kind of ignorance that emerges amongst the masses of people. Like, let's say they turn up to the graves of saints and they may say, you know, and sometimes I feel that these things, that these things are not Islam proper or religion proper in that way, but there is a, I still don't see those things as shirk in that way. I see them as wrong, but that there is, you see, if you ask those people, they say that, look, obviously I don't believe this person's God. I just believe he's so beloved that I'm asking him to sort it out for me through God. You know, this kind of, and this is the kind of common, the non-religiously literate. So they're not really people who are so clued up about Islam. They're just your regular, like, there might be farmers or people in these countries that are doing this. And I feel that there must be a sense of compassion in understanding. And it's not, because it's not shirk really from their way, even though it comes across like that. That said, I do find issue then with, we're educated, where we've kind of created a culture within Sunni Islam. Like, let's say you take the Indo-Pak thing now. I do find issue where they will say things like they called Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anh, Mushkil Kusha, the one who gets rid of all your problems. Why? Like, I don't understand why we use these words, because, and I get it, to some of them, my kind of excuse is that maybe because they've been so born and raised in this, it's almost just become the inherent embedded nomenclature that they use, that it's not even, maybe it's not even giving the meaning as they're saying it. It's that common. I mean, this is my way of, you know, finding, like, I think, well, you know, maybe they're saying it like that. But to me, who, like, we don't use that all the time, I find it very odd. Like, why would we say that to anyone? Like, it is only Allah in that sense, and especially if you're literate about the deen. And this is why I don't. So once again, if you're going to refer to Abdul Qadir al-Jilani, you know, may Allah be pleased with him, as Ghaus Spark, but you're doing it just because it's almost like it's become a signifier. It doesn't even almost carry the meaning. You're just so used to it that you don't even use it in that way. It's like, you know, somebody here asked about Christmas. Do Muslims? And Muslims don't celebrate Christmas, generally speaking. So, you know, but people might use the word Christmas just because it's lost its meaning of even the word Christ, that they used it so commonly and consistently. Oh, like they might say, oh, Happy Christmas or Merry Christmas. They don't even though etymologically you've got the word Christ in there, but it's become so commonplace that it loses its kind of meaning. And that happens in many cases, and you see that all the time, even in hadith literature. We're going to find that. So in that sense, we're okay that people are using Rose Park because they use it so much. It's just become a name for Sayyid Abdul Qadir al-Jilani. May Allah be pleased with him. But otherwise, using these things or to teach that, look, why don't you, it's fine to just call upon Jesus to heal you. I mean, it's just so unwarranted, unnecessary, and just kind of antithetical, really, to, like, I don't see why. I could understand that if a person said, look, if a person did this as a Muslim and they did it, it's probably not shirk, but it's still probably wrong. Because let's say a Muslim did this because he read the Quran or he heard the stories of Jesus and he heard that Allah had granted Jesus this ability to do this. And so he thought, well, that's something Allah's given to Jesus. So I'm going to ask Jesus, to help. So I wouldn't say it's shirk, but I would say it's wrong. Like, it's not right to do it. It's not how you would teach. Like, I would never teach, God forbid, my kids to say things like that. But like, so one is to be compassionately excusing to people if they do it. One is to defend the practice of it. So one is to kind of be compassionate towards the practice, as in we say, well, okay, people who did it, maybe this is what they mean. And, let's not make too much of a big deal. It's not right. And really, we should just do this. But one is to defend. Are you saying they're defending as in?
No, yeah. So what Daniel's saying is that they're wrong to do it, like it's haram, but it's not shirk. Okay. So I think similar to what you're saying, as in they're not out of Islam.
Okay, so I misunderstood that then. Okay, because I thought, for the love of God, I can't really picture any Muslim teaching this stuff.
Yeah, no. But then
you should call upon Jesus too.
Yeah, all the Salafi YouTubers, they got they got a document where they had 30 different scholars or whatever sign off.
Are they going? This is the old Indo-Pak technique, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is the whole. This is Hussam al-Haramain. This is the whole. The Brilvi kind of the classical. We're gonna get loads of people to sign this, and
they got Adnan Rashid, Farid, Ijaz, Jake, Ali Dawah, all of those guys. And the document basically says that we disassociate from Daniel Hakikachu because he's spreading shirk apologetics, basically.
And what else? Any other interesting, intriguing opinions, or was that it? Were these the? Has he become somewhat mystical or not really? Not on that?
No, not. I don't really watch his stuff. It's just like the drama stuff that I'm kind of keeping up with. I think he's just going against the Wahhabis. He also associated a lot of them with some of the ISIS attacks or something. So that's why they also, because I think he has a whole documentary on Wahhabis. Then he put some of their faces there, saying that they were connected to the ISIS attacks. So they're also angry at that.
Some recent attacks, or historic?
I think recent ones, where he's saying that there
had been recent attacks.
Oh, I don't know where the most recent one was. Saying that they resort to particular hadiths to, go after innocent people.
I wonder if Daniel would be willing to attend a mind trap at some point.
I feel like he would because he's.
I don't think he would. You think he would?
I think so, because he's been calling out all these YouTubers and scholars, and they don't want to discuss with him because they don't want to associate with him at all. So I feel like if someone reached out to him to explain his side, I think he'd be willing to come on.
You think he'd be up for a mind trap discussion about this kind of stuff? And
I feel like he's become more open-minded on a lot of these
I don't
since
think you would, you know. I don't think with me. I don't think.
you've made your videos about him.
No, not because of that. No, I don't think it's. No, I'm sure have I not removed the individual videos. I think I removed the individual ones. I think so.
Oh, you have?
But
I don't know.
no, many years ago, ages ago. You know when but I don't know if, but most of the individual ones I had unlisted. Obviously, the main episodes are all there, the whole long shows. But I don't think just because of that. I didn't mean in the sense that he's holding a grudge, although I don't know whether he is or not. But I just meant in the sense of him coming on and talking to me, because I just felt even then he would entirely avoid me entirely, and I don't think even now he would be ready. If he is, sure, you know, well, Daniel, if you happen to listen to this and would love to, you know, have your view expressed, steelman, as in you want to steelman your view, yeah, you know, maybe we could do a mind trap at some point. That could be interesting. Right.
You had Jake on before, a long time ago, right? Jake Brancatello.
Jake, oh yeah, Brancatelli, yes,
Yeah.
on a mind trap ages ago.
Yeah,
but I think that was before he, you know, I don't really follow the da'wah thing, by the way, so I don't.
Yeah.
But I think with these things, this whole culture to me is very like it's energy not well spent. You know, it's kind of this whole thing of this constant. It's very sectarian, isn't it? And very, very like I find that if years have gone by and as a person we're still in the same place we were more or less, then what has life taught us? How have we developed? How have we grown? Where's our bond? Where's our own bond with Allah? Where's our bond with human beings? And I think, you know, with age, one thing that must grow, in addition to so many things, is our compassion, our empathy. Or it must do, you know, because if it doesn't, then, you know, help us, God. Because as an older person, you must have that. You must be able to view a kind of like a lens of compassion and empathy and, yeah. Khair. Right.
Yeah.
So okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, I thought maybe you would
Shukran
have.
for sharing that, because I don't really know all of these things. And like I said, somebody just asked me yesterday, and I said, look, I don't know. I haven't really. There was a debate ages ago between Daniel Haqiqatju and somebody else, which went on for something like 5 hours. I didn't watch it. But who was it? I can't remember now.
Was it like a YouTuber kind of? Okay.
Yeah, I can't remember, but it was like it was one that a lot of people were asking at the time, and I, you know, just had way too many more interesting things to do than to watch it. So, but there was something that went on for that's the first time I became aware that he, seems to be shifting. Was it with Adnan Rashid, or was it?
Oh yeah, it must have been with Adnan Rashid. Yeah, it must have been.
There was one that went on for hours and hours.
Yeah. He had a recent conversation with him. It was very long. Yeah,
look, even this thing, you know, somebody said, look, we must unite against this Wahhabi cancer. Look, even this, part of maturity is we have to recognize that all groups are kind of here to stay. You know, even people, whether they want to be Salafi, whether, you know, to me, like part of this growing up, becoming like part of that maturity pathway is recognizing that, look, if being a Salafi helps you to be a better person, if it brings you closer to Allah, if it helps you kind of cherish Islam in ways that other things couldn't, then, more power to you. I'm not in any way gonna oppose that. I'm not in any way gonna beat down on that or criticize it or look, there's different things for different people. And if it appeals to you in that way, my issue isn't with that. My issue is this impositionism, this thing like to impose on other people. Like if I've become a Maliki now, and now everybody that is doing something else, like you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. No, that attitude is, see, my faith is about devotion. If it's making me a better person, more power to me. If being a Salafi is making somebody better, love Islam better, be a better human being, because that's what it ought to be doing. And this is the question: if religion, how we're finding it, is making you not a better human being, it's not making you care more about people, it's not making you more compassionate, not making you have more empathy, not making you more balanced and mature, then there is something wrong here. Because surely that's what the faith is about. So if that, it's like if I'm eating food and I'm not getting nourished, then something's wrong. If I'm doing this consistently and still I'm massively malnourished, then there's a problem going on. Or if I'm drinking water and I'm still, not getting hydrated, then something must be wrong with the water. So these are the questions. So it's not, even though, look, joking here and there, obviously there's humor, all in good, but I feel that part of the path is not really to be, to bash groups, or because people are who they are, and khair, if that's going to make you somebody that's a better human being, I pray for you, may you hold it forever, go with it, but may it shine bright for you, but just don't be using it as an instrument to kind of bash down on other people, that you just use it to kind of impose your way, that it becomes a tool that you're somehow more holier than other people. That, that's all.
Yeah. Someone in the comments is saying that I misrepresented Daniel. So Baybars 3138, he said, Daniel said Jesus can be intermediary between man and God, like Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, can intermediary.
Okay. I don't know what that fully means, but you see, I think sometimes a lot of these things are just so simple. It's just like a conversation that, look, but there are certain things, but or I don't know, maybe we can put things in a certain equation that one might say, well, okay, but we don't generally, this is not how we teach our faith. In the general sense, we don't invoke Jesus or call upon Jesus. Obviously, if a person did call out to Jesus, once again, you see, this mitigating, we don't, we're not here to trigger happy to chuck people out of the faith. Sure, maybe they understood it in this way, but that's not how we teach the deen. We don't embed it with that structure. We obviously, it's Allah. Tawheed is very clear, and I'm sure Muslims wouldn't really or shouldn't really teach otherwise. Yeah. Right. Well, Fahim, shukran. I mean, was that's, I suppose that's enough of their kind of distractions. May Allah bless them as well. Look, may Allah, every person, I'm telling you, what it is people are just struggling. People are struggling. They are trapped. Many people have dug themselves into a corner or into a hole, into a ditch that they can't get out of. And many religious people have done that as well. That they've done something for so long that they kind of stuck with it now. And they feel they don't know how to even, it's too much of a. So may Allah, and they're struggling as well. Everybody's struggling, regardless. It's not that quote that be kind, for everybody you meet is fighting a difficult battle. So may Allah bless them as well, ameen, and make things easy for them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Khair.
Yeah. I have another a pressing question. I don't really have an answer. So it's about miracles. Obviously you've
Pressing
said
question. Allah.
yeah. So you've said that so God has laws that He's imposed on the universe, and He wouldn't go against them to create miracles. That the miracles should kind of fit into nature and not be supernatural. So my question is on the sleepers of the cave. So obviously they slept in the cave for 300 years with their dog, and then they wake up and like they haven't aged and they're in a different time. So like how would that be possible in a natural way?
Yeah, so there's a few things, and I do have an old video on this as well, where I go into a lot of detail, and I think that I wouldn't really do it justice right now. So I would say, look, watch that video where I go through detail. The thing is that the Quran doesn't clearly affirm how long they were there. It offers speculation of what other people are saying they were there for. And it just says, Wallahu a'lamu bikam labithu. Allah knows best how long they lingered for, how long they remained there. Doesn't answer it. But people take that, 300 سنين وازدادوا تسعة, that 300 years plus 9, to mean the Quran is affirming that. But in one of the qira'at of, I see, once again, from the top of my head, I think it might have been Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu's qira'ah, but one of the companions, they read waqalu, and they said 300 years plus 9. So it's carrying on with this whole conjecture of what speculation of what people are saying. Now, so how much they actually, what we do know is that the sleepers of the cave, the Ashab al-Kahf, that they went completely into a like a hibernating kind of state. This, now, what is interesting is, you see, mammals, now humans don't tend to hibernate, obviously. We don't tend to, we don't, but mammals do, including bears and other species. Now, hibernation is fascinating because what it does is it completely slows down metabolism to such an extent that you stay alive, but the cells don't require that level of energy to survive. So on a very minimal energy, these animals, even those that are huge, bigger than humans, they go months on end without any food. And they arise from their slumber being, more or less normal. So they're not, whereas if you try to do that, you'd be dead by being malnourished. So there was some interesting theories about caves and the emission of certain gases like sulfur and some other gases that are often found in certain caves. These can induce a hibernating state in individuals. So there was some, not just speculation, that there's hypothesis, for example, that space travel, one of the arguments for space travel is that we will put humans into a hibernating state and they will wake up like 100 years later, 150 years later. And that's how they can traverse so much space. So how would we do that? Well, we already have that kind of theory on how to do it. Which kind of gases do what? And these gases are found naturally as well, and they're found in caves. So one plausible hypothesis and theory has been that as they resorted to the cave, which was rich in these gases, they entered into a hibernating state that lasted. And due to the slowed down metabolic state that they were in, minimal energy was required, but it was still it was still consuming. And this is why the Quran does give the example that when speaking of them, that after whatever it was, so many years or whatever the period was, they were in a state that if you saw them, you would have been terrified. It says, what is it? لَمُلِئْتَ مِنْهُمْ رَعْبًا, that you would have been terrified if you saw what they looked like by the end of it. So the Quran mentions that they were in a state that would have sparked terror in you had you seen them, and you would have fled for your, turned your back and ran. So clearly, even though there's this kind of slowed hibernating metabolism, but after whatever the considerable time it is, it's taking a perceptible toll. So yeah, so that's what I would say, that these things, you see, look, the miracle is these things coming together by the will of Allah, and them happening in that way is the miracle. It doesn't mean that it's impossible forever to have happened. Like, you could take those gases now and they'd kind of knock you out. But what we're talking about is in a particular state, in a particular circumstance, these things being brought together and happening, obviously by the will of Allah. So, yeah.
You say it was for a few years, at least, that they would have been in the cave, or?
I would imagine, of course, for quite a substantial while. I mean, I don't know exactly how long. Somebody said many men are terrified of their wives. Yeah. Even more so than the Ashab al-Kahf. You're like, oh my God, have I hibernated like 1,000 years? What is this zombie? Tova. Amy, there's going to be, let's just hope nobody has seen this comment of yours. Otherwise, they might have put a hit on your head. Allah. So,
yeah,
mind you, Amy, that reminds us, Zahran Mamdani being sworn in. Allah. I believe he put his hand on the Quran, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
And very unprecedented moment for the United States. Allahu Akbar.
Yeah.
So,
I was in New York in October, in the last week of October. I visited New York for a week.
Right. Look at that, huh?
That was mainly
Big Apple.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I didn't go to Brooklyn though, which is where he was.
Yeah, well, inshallah, we'll have to. New York is a place. I suppose America is a place we have to explore. Have to go and visit America, perhaps this year. Allahu Akbar, huh? Why not? And see, some of the things that America is just so epic in. One is steaks. Oh my God. I mean, America has really just brought steaks to the forefront, isn't it? It really is. I think they've really brought that culture, even though the rest of the world eat meat, but it is the Americans. So one is the steak, which I think would be unbeaten. And two, they do have a culture of cigars. I give them that. Allah. They really, I think, unlike the rest of the world, really, these are two, shall we say, delicacies of this dunya that they've really mastered.
Yeah.
So
I wouldn't know, because I'm a vegan. So yeah.
Are you?
Yes,
and you don't smoke cigars either?
No, I don't smoke cigars. No.
So see, look, so you could just introduce yourself by saying, I'm deprived of many of the blessings of Allah. I'm joking.
No, yeah, if you remember our first conversation, it was about veganism and animals. It was I think it was 2021.
In theory, I fully am with from the compassionate side. I'm fully with vegan, is that like
Yes,
that's a
vegan.
step,
Yeah.
so not just
Yeah.
vegetarian,
So no
vegan,
animal products, no milk, no
no
eggs.
animal products.
Yeah.
I mean, I admire
Yeah.
the cause, I admire the discipline, but you know what? These these kind of vampire teeth that that Allah has kind of given us, there is a longing for meat, shall we just say? But I do
We
agree that, and I think the younger generation are very. So my daughter Zara is very Zozo. She's very kind of moved by all of this, and the thought of, even though she does eat, she does eat chicken, um, but she seems to refrain from beef or lamb based on that, really. So she feels that, oh my God, like cows and
yeah.
sheep and lamb, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's not just food as well, because I don't buy leather, I don't buy wool, I don't buy fur, because obviously the leather comes from the cows, and well, those cows, they're not connected to the halal industry, so they're the same cows that are used for like the normal factory farmed meat.
I mean, if it helps, the cow was a vegan.
The cow was a vegan. Yeah.
I'm joking. That's a joke. It's a poor joke, but yeah. So I agree with you. In argument, in theory, I can't. I kind of applaud the compassion, but I just feel that the world is designed in this way that we, unfortunately, we kind of. But maybe a time will come when people,
Yeah.
they maybe that we will have alternatives, and I'm sure that's not so far away. I'll tell you one theory that, I know this is going to sound now very but I kind of feel that this world is, in many ways, like a simulation.
I agree that it's a
And
simulation, as in I fully believe that
yeah,
it's an actual computer simulation. So
yeah,
I'm
like I
fully
believe
with
it's,
that theory.
akin to, like
Yeah.
it's like saying almost like a computer simulation. And except, obviously by the will of Allah's kind of made it that way. But in that sense, then I guess maybe eating animals isn't that bad if it's a simulation.
But I don't think.
I mean,
because they.
I don't mean that to kind of detract, but I kind of almost, it does extend credence to the point. If it is a simulation, then I guess,
But I would say
wouldn't that
animals, they're still kind of like lower level players in the simulation. I mean, I think we still have to take them into account of our moral decisions. Or like, even in Islam, we can't just do whatever we want with animals. There's like certain ethics of how we treat them.
Of course not.
Yeah.
No, I don't mean in the sense cruelty to animals. I would be clearly against. Islam is against cruelty to animals.
Yeah.
Unanimously, nobody says it isn't. And several people, Imam Sakhawi has a whole book written on, the kindness to animals and how to treat them, and and other people have authored books as well. And the Prophet said, "Fi kulli," in every living soul there is a reward for an act of kindness, like as in there, and there is, like, kindness is mandated to it, that it is a living soul. So yeah, I feel is a non-negotiable, really, although people are not kind. But yeah, that's not what but how would you, so the thing is that, well, you see, animals eat animals.
Yeah.
So what would you say about that, though?
Or do we look? We don't, because we don't get our morality from other animals, right?
No, not morality, but like, let's say we have a reservation. Let's say we are in charge of a large, certain forests or whatever, wild parks, or regions of land and territory. And let's say in these territories are predatory apex creatures, like be they tigers or lions or wolves. And let's say there's gazelles and there's deer and there's bucks and there's these other things. Now, or there's buffaloes or whatever they hunt in that region. So let's say we could, in a certain part of it, save and prevent them from hunting. Like we could save those deers, or we could kind of block the wolves, or we could block. Should we is the question, block them?
Yeah, so that's there's like a big split, I guess, in the vegan movement. Is like what you should do in that situation, because there's like the conservation movement where they just say, you know, nature is fine how it is, so you just kind of leave it alone. And there's a different movement where it says, no, we should like be more involved and try to make.
So if we did, then the wolves would starve, let's say.
Yes.
Or
yeah.
And then they
so
would
so that's one thing where the animals eat other animals out of necessity, but we don't do that. We do it because of pleasure.
Wait. Is it out of just necessity, or is it out of instinct?
How do you differentiate between the two? I think the instinct would come because there is a necessity.
Would it?
I believe so. I mean, because you're saying without
why do cats kill?
They've evolved to kill.
No, but they have an instinct to kill.
Yeah, they have an instinct to kill, so that instinct helps them to survive.
No, cats are relatively safe regardless of. They don't have to kill all the.
No, as in they've developed the instinct to kill because it's it gives them an evolutionary advantage over the cats that don't have the instinct. So
no, what I mean is that no, because like cats, you could say, look, well, they could kill to eat, but cats will just kill and they won't even eat the animal. So they kill on many occasions not to eat. So, and they kill also whilst being the dominant creature. Like, so they'll kill a mouse. The mouse is not really, doesn't pose a threat to them. It's just the moment they see it moving, the instinct kicks in. The hunter instinct, the predatory mode switches on. And so it's like an instinct animals have, not necessity. So necessity may obviously, you know, when people creatures will act out of necessity, but it's not necessity, it's instinct that makes them do that.
But I think so why do you think the instinct developed in the cats or whatever predators? Like, why do you think they have that instinct?
Because I think all creatures have this instinct. All life has this instinct
to kill.
I feel that, you see, I don't know if the right word is to kill, but the right word to create and to destroy. That, you see, there is almost a spark of, like with life, there is this almost, you see, like if we look at the cosmos, there is everything has its counter. So, you know, where you have particles, you'll have antiparticles. Where you'll have matter, you'll have antimatter. Where you have like things, where there's a positive, there must be a negative. And I feel that this thing that even some ancient, religions maybe mistook maybe in a certain way and attributed them to, you know, deities like in Hinduism, but it was what they were mirroring is this kind of will that they saw, this which on one hand is creative and the other hand is destructive, like they're two sides of a coin. And I feel that you couldn't really have, like, by having one, the counterpart is put into and maybe it's that kind of Lagrangian point of for the, you know, like an algorithm for this simulation, like it but it's what it is part of, it is hardwired into creatures, humans, I think, also not very different. Now, one theory is that as humans have this will, this instinct to destroy and shed blood, have we sublimated this instinct by kind of recalibrating it to sacrificing animals and then eating them, as opposed to shedding blood of other humans? Then that is there in this sacrificial expression beyond food a salvation for mankind that Allah has hidden. That this is I feel it's a deeper question than we sometimes realize. That the story of the two sons of Adam.
Yes.
It's a fascinating and intriguing story that they offer this, their offering to Allah. And the Quran briefly mentions the, فَتَقُبِّلَ مِنْ أَحَدِهِمَا وَلَمْ يُتَقَبَّلْ مِنَ الْآخِرِ. Notice Allah doesn't say فَتَقَبَّلْنَا, we accepted it from one. It says, and it was accepted from one, in the passive voice. Now, that's interesting and for speculation that one can, but not to digress. The Quran doesn't go into too much detail, except it mentions then the one son of Adam, Qabil, kills Habil. And then he says, it says, فَأَصْبَحَ مِنَ النَّادِمِينَ. Later on, as he sees the kind of crow or the raven do this, or scrape the ground or do whatever he's going to do. But the biblical expansion on this story is fascinating, because the biblical expansion, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. So Abel and Cain is going to be the one that kills. Now they make an offering to the Lord. Now, what does Abel offer to the Lord?
Like a goat or an animal or something? Sheep?
Something, yeah. He offers something like a sheep or something like this. But what does Cain offer to the Lord?
Well, it's crops, right?
He offers vegetation, vegetables and plants.
Yeah.
Because wouldn't you think that is a more noble offering?
The vegetables, or?
Yeah, because why take life?
I think, I think.
Yet, when he sees that, you see, what does he do then? He resorts to taking the life of Abel.
Mm-hmm.
In some way, almost scapegoating this kind of, you see, like, I feel that there's more to this story that's very intriguing than just how people apparently read it. That it's almost on its head, that you have Cain, he offers vegetation, hard work. We plant and we take these things and it's clean. And by clean, I don't mean dirt. I mean like clean as in it's hard work. It's the labor, the toil of my hands. And I work and I harvest and I offer it. And he goes and sheds blood. Now, and to him it appears, and I'm not going to say Allah accepted that, but because the Quran doesn't say Allah accepted it. It says it was accepted, whatever that meant. Now, was it that a lightning just happened to strike down and hit that one, and they assumed that meant it was acceptance? Is it like perception? Because the Quran doesn't say, Allah doesn't say we accepted it. It was accepted. It appeared it was accepted. It was accepted from him. Now, what does that mean? Well, you could say, well, this is Allah saying it in the passive voice. I'm not saying I did it. I'm saying it was accepted, meaning I accepted it. Sure, you could do that. One way, it could be that it appeared to them, maybe like a lightning struck down and it appeared that this. Now, what does this invoke in Qabil? that instinct for blood that he had given up. And you see, when this is evoked, see, what does Ghalib say in that poem? He says he says, Pir एक गिरिए ने शोर उठ दिल में फिर एक गिरिए ने शोर उठाया Ghalib. That within the heart, that storm cried out once again, जो ना कतरा निकला सो तूफान निकला. That where you hadn't let just tears emerge because you were being so stone about your emotions, when it did emerge, it turned into a storm. जो ना कतरा निकला सो तूफान निकला. You see now this, the volcanicity, volcanic expression. So what does Cain do? That lust for blood. See, is it lust or is it an instinct? We don't know. I don't know, because obviously we would say it's categorically wrong to shed blood, especially human blood. But whatever happens, it goes from this person who's not even going to hurt an animal. He wants to offer this to then taking the life of Habil. And and then it mentions that he becomes, this thing for asbaha min al-nadimin. Was he really from the nadimin? Now, most of Mufassirin say he wasn't regretful in that sense, but that he was of the first to this kind of scapegoating, this kind of like the only way, if that's what God wanted, is that what God wanted? Then let me express this. Let me take it up a level. Is this what God wanted? Obviously, that's not what God wanted, but is that his inner feeling that is this what God wanted? So let me murder him. Let me shed his blood. Surely if that's what you're saying your God wants. Now, this scapegoating becomes later a human tradition that, what we do is all the sins of the community, and the Jewish, in their tradition, this was then later sublimated to a goat or something, that all the sins of this community, this person, this witch or this sorcerer, he is the curse. So we must, even if we don't want to, we must kill him to kind of absolve ourselves. This is the kafara. This is the instinct. Now, I feel that the human psyche is so, it is so complex, because at many levels we are just animals, aren't we? Except, we are this between animal and, one could say, angel, or between, we on one hand mirror the divine, on one hand this capacity allows us to be that much evil as well that animals can't be, that we can take it to another degree, that animals don't commit genocide. Animals don't, completely eradicate. They, even though they have an instinct to kill, but not to do things in that way. So, yeah, I mean, that's a fascinating digression. I'm not sure if you had thoughts on that, but yeah.
Yeah. So, I was thinking of your video on Abraham and sacrificing his son, because obviously he had the dream where he sacrifices his son, and we don't know which son it is, but I think his son thinks it's from God, so he tells him to go ahead with it. And then eventually, God says not to do it, and to sacrifice, like a ram instead. So from that, I think, there's the whole bloodlust thing. I think it's being, so instead of doing it on humans, it's kind of being replaced on animals. Whereas before we used to, I think you were saying how human sacrifice was a very popular thing.
I mean, I'm not saying everybody was doing it, but
no,
it wasn't. it wasn't unknown. Like people offered to the gods, and
Mhm.
but I'm just wondering about. You see, one is belief structures. There's no denying, obviously, belief like these kind of ancient cultish religions that needed sacrificing children and all of that. There's no denying that they had their influence. But what I was kind of almost poking at here wasn't and stoking the discourse wasn't so much for that. It was more like, do we have this kind of, does insan have this instinct of bloodlust that maybe this expression has sublimated to this category that yes, there is food, yes, there is this, yes, there is clothing for you from animals, yes, there is, all these kind of things. You could use the hide, you could use the leather, you could use the fur, you could use the wool. There's all of these things. You could use bones to do things, you could use the fat, and there is sustenance, there is food, there is protein, clearly. But beyond that as well, is there another element that it kind of it stops? It's a doorstopper. I don't know. Like, obviously, these are not things we can ever say that they are this way or aren't. This isn't a question mark to trying to explore the human psyche, the human nature, the human instinct. Yeah.
Like I think in the past we may have had it, but I feel like we've kind of gone past that stage now. And most of us, we don't really sacrifice animals. If we see an animal, our instinct is to pet it and be kind to it. We wouldn't want to put a knife.
So you see, right. So here's the difference. You see, you're speaking about in the everyday, and I agree with you. Most of us are like that. But what about in the realm of fantasy? Because human beings can't really dissociate themselves from the realm of fantasy. And this is something psychoanalysis is really is so key on, that it's highlighted. You see, what is fantasy? Fantasy, as explained in Lacanian psychoanalysis, it is the structure, if you like, or the space, or the language in which desires are expressed. So you cannot think of any desire without a fantasy, without something to express it. You cannot, otherwise, imagine you removed all fantasy for a moment. You couldn't really express desire. They would be like, it wouldn't mean anything. It is but an expression of the things that a person has. Now, let's say you take fantasy, the realm of fantasy, and fantasy is much more important to human existence than we think, because fantasy isn't just something that this is the naivety that people assume that, fantasy is just like, it's just in our mind and we go off to it. It allows us to kind of conduct, it allows us to have desires. That no desire is expressed devoid of fantasy. It can never happen. I mean, you take, since I'm speaking psychoanalytically, the strongest of all desires, especially from a Freudian perspective, is going to be the sexual drive, the libido. It could have no expression, as Lacan had argued, and especially Lacanian they've argued and they've shown this. It could have no expression without fantasy. There must be some level of fantasy, some level. Otherwise, the sheer mechanics of it would render it impotent. It would, if it was just left to just mere mechanistic biology, it would be meaningless to humans. So, you see, so now you take this realm of fantasy. People have a fantasy that they are killing bad guys, that they are saving the day. that they are rescuing the world from evil people, that they kill, that they're this hero that kills all these people and saves. People have a fantasy that even, you could say, even an adult could drift off into it upon occasion. Now, so that shows in the unconscious, has that instinct for blood gone away? I mean, it's a question mark, because it's clearly there for the expression of pleasure in fantasy. So it's deeply embedded in our unconscious. Now, one could say, well, it's a harmless fantasy, and I would agree. For the outright, thank God, majority of human beings, it would be a harmless fantasy. A fantasy, yet it still remains. Now, that is the question, that, you see, if it still remains a fantasy within the unconscious, it must have some substance to it. It must have something for the unconscious to hold on to these things, that it must be something. But you're right that general civilization, as alhamdulillah, has steered us away from this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I feel
I don't
like
know if
I think I see what you're saying about the fantasy stuff. I think there's a lot of different ways that we can express it. Like, there's obviously movies and TV shows that go into it. Like, there's stuff like John Wick, where he's killing all these bad people because someone killed his dog. You can there's lots of games you can play where you can fulfill your fantasies, like GTA.
You see, we are all drawn. This is what I'm saying, that is it that this instinct, because we are drawn to the dark. Maybe we don't like to admit it, but there is something about it that draws people. And by the dark here, I mean these, I'm not passing a moral judgment on it, but the dark, because this instinct would be obviously a dark instinct in that sense. It's not, I'm not passing a morality judgment on it, on saying whether it's good or bad, because one could say, well, if done in a good context, like you said, if you're saving people and you're killing people by saving innocent people, it would be deemed a good value judgment. So I'm speaking bereft of value judgments, but there is something clearly that it draws, it must intrigue the nafs, it must intrigue the self. The humans are drawn to these things that you can't there was a poem that what did the poet said? It was a dark poem actually about suicide in Urdu, where he said what was the he said that मौत के दरिंदे में एक कशिश तो है. Damn, what was his name? The poet's name. But he says मौत के दरिंदे में एक कशिश तो है, लोग कुछ भी कहें खुदकुशी के बारे में. That the monster of death has a feature that draws you in. He said it kind of attracts you, no matter what people say about suicide. That was a very dark poem, actually. I've slipped the name of the poet slipped my mind right now. But what we can't deny that there is this. So where is this coming from? Is there something within? And this is once again bereft of morality judgment, because you could use it either way. So as not to say, well, this is from the shaitan, because, well, obviously if it's bad things, then one could say, well, it's these negative kind of intuitions or negative kind of insinuations, whispers of the shaitan. But there is there something at the core of insan? So I don't know. These are intriguing explorations, I feel, of the human psyche. Khair,
Mhm.
I think we've this has been a really fascinating discussion for him. It actually
Mhm.
turned into our own little podcast here.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but
I would. Yeah, I would want to discuss more. I think it's a good discussion that we're having. Um,
it was very, very fruitful. I think very intriguing. I often honestly think, my mind will go from theme to theme, topic to topic. And I love these 5 areas that I was saying today, these kind of 5 Ps. I'm always looking into them, always exploring something about them: psychology, philosophy, physics, poetry, and perplexity, the kind of mysticism that I feel that these things, they always, for me anyway, I find them just wow. So these kind of topics, I'm kind of, uh, right, really, uh, I love uh, exploring. Somebody said he's going to have some steak after this.
yeah, vegan
That would,
steak, vegan steak.
yeah,
Yeah,
that would, yeah.
the meat alternatives are they're pretty good now. Pretty
Yeah, I think they
convincing.
are. They're very convincing. I've
Mm.
you have from the supermarkets, like you have from Tesco's, you get all this, vegan. I think vegan or vegetarian. You get vegetarian sausages,
Yeah,
like lamb sausages, and but they're vegetarian,
yeah,
and beef sauce, and they taste just like lamb and beef, and
hmm
they're 100% vegetarian. So, and they
yeah,
even stack them with protein now.
yeah,
So they even stack them, they make them protein enriched. So you're getting, more protein than just regular vegetables. You're getting it as if you're eating beef,
hmm
for example.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah.
With they're obviously going to start making artificial meat, lab grown meat. Um, if they make lab grown pork, would that be halal to eat or no?
You see, I don't see there's two things. One, I don't think Muslims should eat it, but
Hmm
I don't think it would be haram. So the difference is that, you see, not eating pork is not because the pig has done something to upset Allah. It's that this is what we have that's symbolic in our faith, that then it manifests, expresses itself as the Muslim identity, that an abstinence from a particular meat, and that happens to be pork for us.
Yeah.
And this continues with the Abrahamic tradition. Islam didn't come up with this. This was coming down. Now, this is now a matter of identitarian expression. So to start eating pork that is non-pig pork, it wouldn't necessarily be haram because it's not pork. But you see, the identity that Muslims have worldwide is that we don't eat pork. So I feel that, this is why we shouldn't really do it, because it's more an identity of Muslims that we don't eat pork. So why, I get it, one could say, well, it's still not technically pork. This is why I said it's not haram. But why, to me, that identity is something that, the Quran has kind of united us on. And it's united us on very few things like that. One is to point towards the Qibla and to pray, and to, and the other is this, that we refrain from pork. So to me, these, yeah, I would say that they shouldn't still do it,
hmm
if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I would have it either. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think in the future there's going to be a lot more
So,
lab
and this
grown.
is in contrast to turkey bacon,
Yes.
because you
Yeah.
see, turkey bacon, it's as if what people have done is they've just repurposed the word bacon here to mean turkey bacon. So it's almost become a thing now that people would say, oh, turkey bacon. And they mean by it like turkey meat. So it's not the same as saying pork, even though bacon in essence was used for pork, but this part of it has been almost repurposed in that way. So I don't see them the same as saying like artificial synthetic pork, I would see as something we shouldn't do, because it's just, it's just for no reason you're going against the identity that we have. And really, Islam has given us very little, unlike what many people may choose to believe, that we have a uniform and things. We don't really have any uniform in Islam. And, maybe some people want to adopt a particular uniform, and they're more than welcome to do that. But Islam hasn't really given us a uniform. So what it has given us are just these few identity markers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you could even technically like lab grow human flesh, and people could have that.
Okay, I know. I never realized that. That never even crossed my mind. That thought of that, even that people were doing that, or they're saying that they could do that.
I mean, I feel like there should be no reason why it's not possible. If they can do it with animals, it should be doable with humans.
Would human meat even be? Would it even be something that would be tasty or something?
I think
it wouldn't really.
I've heard that it tastes similar to pork or something.
Well, God forbid. I feel that there is just some things that have like a sanctity, and that is like looking at humans and a sanctity that the human has. Even though there are obviously cannibalistic societies, but not societies as an oxymoron, cannibalistic societies. There are cannibalistic, dwellings, shall we say, on Earth, but they are, very rare and relatively speaking. Yeah.
So everyone's calling me a cannibal now in the chat.
Yeah, there you go. See, this is what made Fahim vegetarian. After he realized it was actually, I've read in the past that they said some places, even in some Islamic literature, I'm sure I've read now that I'm just thinking about it, that they said allegedly that human meat had such an addiction to it. This is why it was kind of declared sacred and so on. And as in, some people had given this kind of argument. So there you go. Is that so? Fahim has just, in his cannibalistic past, he was so drawn into it that he thought, you know what, Toba, I give all of this up. I'm going full vegan mode.
Yeah, I think in like 100 years from now, or in that amount of time, I think most of the world would have moved to a plant-based diet. The other thing is that it's a lot better for the environment, and climate change is pretty bad right now. And then animal agriculture is right at the top of the causes of climate change. So I think once we've moved past animal meats, there'll be more artificial meats and plant-based meats. I think most people will look back like hundreds of years before at our practices in the same way that we look back at slavery. I think people try to make.
What would happen to all the surplus animals, though?
Well, we're breeding them into.
We just feed them into the other animals.
No, so we're breeding them into existence. So
right. It's like breeding, supply and demand.
Yeah, it's supply and demand. So like as the vegan population increases, like I think it's like 1% right now, but as it increases,
so would it be better for the animal to never have been born?
Yeah, because they're literally born into hell. They're born into the worst conditions possible.
But let's say it wasn't born into the worst conditions. It lived, and is it better for it to have never existed?
I think so, because it's not going to feel any pain. Just use an human in the same situation.
Because I was going to then extend that to humans.
But
then your argument would mean that it would be better to kill certain humans as a baby by that logic.
No, as in not them not being born, not conceive them.
Not
being born versus being killed at 18.
Or never.
Just never like. I think abortion's probably fine.
Because the animals
consummated.
Because the animals would experience joy as well. Let's say an animal lived its full life and experienced joy as well. But you see, what is the pain is just the sacrificing at the end. So if animals were kept in in very what's a better word for it, in very
Humane.
healthy and humane. Yeah, I was thinking of humane, but I was stopping myself because of the word human in it.
Yeah.
So if they were kept in rightful caring environments and atmospheres, and let's say they lived very organically and flourished, but then only at the time of sacrifice they are
Yeah.
offered, like, kind of
Yes.
taken out as meat, but they're not these battery farms, but let's say healthier organic versions in the future, because they could easily set them up if they wanted. It just requires so much more investment.
It's not the reason that the factory farming exists is to meet the demand of the human population right now.
But they could do the same thing given more, and it's more cost effective to have it this way. But if they did it, like, let's say they could do the same thing in an organic sense, like, let's say they let these chickens roam, they let them mass reproduce, but loads of them roam and much better conditions, and they could do it, but they don't see the purpose, because they think, well, we're getting our money anyway. Like this, why waste so much more, millions and millions investing for what we're not going to make that money back? So but if let's say they did, if that wasn't the issue, like they were in more humane conditions and more healthy conditions and lively, and but then it's only the sacrifice at the end, would they still, then they would have lived their version of a fulfilling life. But then I guess the fulfilling life for the goat might be getting eaten by the wolf. So, I mean, how do we stop that then?
Stop the wolf eating the goat.
Yeah.
Like, so I
Did you
think
give them artificial meat?
Well, so I think so there's there's a debate about that in the vegan community, but I think obviously the focus
wolves artificial.
Well, I think there's like some people who would just say
kill off.
Can
I have a paper straw with that as well, please?
Some people would just say, like, kill off all the predators, so there's so the prey will be fine, and then
that's not very creature loving to kill off all. I love things like tigers and wolves. I think they're so majestic.
But I think the main focus first would be to get rid of the factory farming that's going on right now. Then once I
agree with you. I think all of that stuff is a result of blind, sheer consumeristic capitalism. I mean, or pure capitalistic. I don't just mean, I'm not saying capitalism necessarily has to always be bad, but that is just like, it's like hard, one could say almost like extreme capitalism, just kind of churning that out. And that I would agree with clearly. And I think most people agree that they should be better, much better conditions for those animals.
But, they agree, but obviously the like the milk, the eggs, the leather, they're all from the
that's a fascinating point. You see, and this ties into our discussion. What, Lonzetta, Alama, how are you doing? Some predators will only hunt, they won't scavenge the food by instinct. It's a fascinating thought, and it comes back to what we were saying, the instinct that lies within, and and that instinct, and the question was as well, that is that instinct also then latent and hidden within humans as well. So that was a discussion. If you've missed it, we had a great quite an expansive dialogue on it, so do rewind and have a listen, inshallah. Right, so, people.
That's fine. I mean,
oh, sorry, you were gonna say,
so you're like, you're against the factory farming and all those, but like, so most people are against it, but the milk and the eggs, and the leather and all the animal products that they buy, that's all a product of that factory farming, so the capitalistic factory farming, and them paying for it is only making that worse. So they are causing that demand, so they're causing that to continue to happen. Whereas what vegans are trying to do is to boycott that and go for alternative methods, plant-based milks and like different like egg mixes, whatever, artificial synthetic leather. So yeah, that's what I argue for basically.
Yeah, I do see that it is a very fascinating discussion, and in many ways, and I know this will just keep the discussion going.
Yeah.
That now there's studies showing that plants feel pain, right? Which
it's not true because they don't have a brain or a central nervous system like
but they
mammals
seem to
do.
react.
They can react. There's plant intelligence, but it's not pain. It's so there's no sentience, there's no consciousness, there's no awareness.
How would you know though? How would you know though?
Because we know that it's linked. Consciousness is linked to the brain and the nervous system. So if you don't have nerve centers and pain receptors,
no, because
there's
you're
nothing
talking
to feel the pain.
No, because there's a difference between consciousness and, I mean, because when you're saying consciousness, people might be assuming like human consciousness, but like sentience, feeling.
Yeah.
What's to say that they're not sentient? I mean, how could you possibly prove that? I don't think you could prove it. I think it'd be almost impossible.
Well, sentience is the ability to feel pleasure and pain, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how would you feel, even in humans, if you don't have pain receptors? You're just not going to feel the pain. So plants don't have any kind of nervous system. So how are they going to feel pain?
But there's studies showing them reacting.
Yeah, reactions are different to pleasure and pain because chemicals can react, right? The chemicals aren't sentient. If you mix two different chemicals,
but how would you know that's not their version of pain?
Because the same thing I said. Like pain requires receptors, requires a nervous system.
No, because but a nervous system, you see, it requires a system. But nerve system is obviously the human version of that. So what we're doing is analogizing humans onto. So that's like saying, yeah. So no, but yes, animals do have it. But what I mean is, you're extending the analogy and then saying, well, because plants are not part of the animal kingdom, and they don't have the nervous system, therefore they don't have that. But there's no. But you've kind of started off with that premise by saying, well, feelings, like we only have feelings because we have nerves. But that's for animals. But for non-animals, like let's say now plants do seem to be reacting, recent studies show, which demonstrate that they seem to be some kind of sensibility towards pain and pleasure, or definitely towards pain.
How towards pain?
The way they react to.
Well, like if you kick a flower, does it like react in a certain way where?
No, well, it wouldn't. Pain? Not like that, but they would. So for example, in fact, but they've shown that they demonstrate. Let's see, what they actually showed was, because I mean, obviously, I know I have many things from the top of my head, but this is not one. So what was the research? But there was some research to show this.
It's been like I'll say that there's been studies debunking those ones that suggest that they feel pain. Yeah.
I mean, but how would they? But how would you be able to 100% know? You wouldn't be able to know, would you?
I mean, in the sense that you can't 100% know anything for sure, but like there's no good reason to believe.
But let's say you went with the premise that life, because you see, one is it's inanimate, doesn't have life. If it has life, it's highly plausible that it has some sentience.
No, because
would that not be a natural corollary?
You would say cells are alive, right?
They are alive. Yeah.
So are your skin cells feeling pain as they're shedding from your skin?
You
Like,
see, but maybe they are feeling certain things, but they're at such a molecular
but we
level
don't.
that we
Yeah,
are switched off from
sure,
recognizing them.
but
So
we
maybe the
don't.
brain's preventing us from registering it because
Yeah, so the brain is needed to register things, but the cells don't
no,
have a
no,
brain.
no, no. What if it's doing it, preventing us from doing it? So look, the brain could be, on one hand, it could be doing, allowing us to register them. On another hand, it could be preventing, because otherwise we could have sensory overload. So it's not allowing us to feel those. So, for example, right now, we can't feel our liver functioning. We can't feel our kidneys working. Now, that doesn't mean they're not working or they don't feel things. They do feel things, but we are not, the brain prevents us from feeling it, because otherwise there'd be sensory overload and we couldn't function. So the brain on some things could be inhibitory as well. Now, so if there is life, there is the argument to be made that there is sentience, because how would you disprove it? Because the only way you disprove it is by saying, well, they don't have what we have, therefore surely they can't feel. But that doesn't, clearly that doesn't apply when it comes to life, and they are a different kingdom. They're not the animal kingdom, they're the plant kingdom.
Yeah, but you would need to prove that the plant kingdom do feel pain, but also with the liver thing, the liver isn't feeling pain. We are feeling pain because we have the liver, right? If we isolated the liver and just put it outside, like if you stab the liver, it's not, there's no sentience in there.
But
Where it's like,
but as part of us, there's parts of our bodies that have feeling, like they can feel. That's what I meant. But obviously we are part of that. But what I was trying to show there wasn't about the parts having feeling, but was that the brain preventing feeling as opposed to enabling feeling. So in some things the brain does enable, in some things it disables. So it prevents us as much as it allows us. So things that don't have a brain, what's to say they're not feeling? I'm just thinking,
because the feeling.
look, okay, don't certain worms, if you disconnect them, and no, in fact, actually, there's been also studies on what do you call those? Not single cell amoeba, but there's been a very it's not from the top of my head, so it'll that they actually showed for the first time that they were kind of seeking out. So if they were seeking, but they don't have a brain and they don't have a nervous system, so the fact that they could seek out showed, oh, that's it. Yeah, a plankton, that's it. So this was a bit of a spanner in the general works for us. So, and what about mushrooms? Do mushrooms seem to communicate through mycelium structures underground, and they seem to salvage? And trees and plants actually use the mycelium structure to help one another. So, for example, if a tree realizes that tree over there has got less water, it will allow that part of the ground to absorb more to help that, and it will communicate using the mycelium structure. Now, that sounds very not only advanced, but it sounds very sentient.
But it's not it's not the tree saying, "Oh yeah, my friend tree over there is in danger. Let me go help him." That's just how the trees evolved to survive. Eventually,
how do we? But what? Wait a minute. Why is it not saying that? It is saying.
Wait, so, I mean, it seems like you're just assuming sentience for all life for some reason. Which it seems like a very panpsychist view. I don't know if you've heard of that.
No, because look, if the tree, let's say there's a bunch of trees here, now we know trees communicate with one another, and they say, well, you know, they look out for each other, and they also help heal one another. So that is clearly communication. So if they're communicating, how are they communicating without sentience? That they must be.
I mean, there's plant intelligence. It's like artificial intelligence, right? AI can communicate, but it doesn't feel pain. It's not suffering. There's no consciousness.
But AI is not growing as a living, metabolizing, organism. But trees and plants, like, they are alive. They're growing.
Yeah, they can be alive.
So life is. So if the argument, let's say the hypothesis is life necessitates sentience. Let's say that's a hypothesis. Now, obviously, computers are not alive in that way, that, you know, they're like engineered, they're electrical. But if something was alive, and growing and metabolizing and doing these things. And if this hypothesis was that life necessitates sentience, how would we disprove it? Because what we could say, well, obviously we can't tell. Like when I look at this trees, but now, mind you, we realize there's a lot of healing by hugging trees and doing all of this. But let's say we're just looking, and we only realize, by the way, that trees even communicate since the last 10 to 15 years. Prior to that, we didn't really know that. So we would just say, well, look, when I kick this, like you said, well, if I kick this plant, it's not going to start screaming. But that's because that's not how they communicate. So we're kind of expecting them to behave like us or behave like animals, but they're not animals, they're plants. So they have a different kingdom and a different
why are you
expression.
expecting them to feel pain?
Because if they carry life, then life must carry pain and joy.
Why? How are you defining life?
But that is the hypothesis, that let's say that's the hypothesis, that life by its very essence encapsulates feelings.
Okay, so if I just said matter encapsulates feelings, how would you disprove that?
So sure. Now,
like, let's say I was a full panpsychist and I'm saying,
sure,
every subatomic particle in the universe, it has some level of consciousness.
Sure. Now, that's a different argument. That's a different, which I could get behind as well. But that argument wouldn't really be saying matter per se. That would be saying that the fundamental irreducible building blocks of reality is consciousness. And because consciousness is conscious, therefore all structures in this cosmos, everything and nothing, is from that consciousness, and therefore it must carry within it some of that consciousness, even if it's imperceptible. Now that I think is fine. I don't think we can refute that argument, or we can defeat it. I don't think we can. But if you just said to me, not from that argument, if you just said, look, I believe all stones are alive.
Yeah.
Now, okay, sure, but my point would be that what would alive, like, what does that mean? Like, what does that mandate? Like, usually they would say life necessitates things like growth. Something grows, something metabolizes, something takes energy and converts it into something else. It does these kind of things. This movement is usually a sign of life. Now, if you said, like, stones don't tend to do that, any of those things, so it would be a difficult argument to just as a statement, not on the consciousness being an irreducible fundamental. That's a different argument, which in that sense, we're not saying stones, we're just saying every speck of reality has consciousness. And so that's like a slightly different argument. But in this one, I think it's hard to posit stones on their own, but something that does grow, and it kind of grows into something, and it breathes and it lives and it takes in, gases and converts them and metabolizes and moves and, does all of these things. You see, it's hard to then, like, I feel it, or I feel it's not so easy to dismiss that they could have sentience.
Yeah, most, you won't find any like biologists that will tell you that plants feel pain. But if you're saying that, how would you disprove it? Then are you saying it's unfalsifiable, that your claim? Because then it wouldn't fall in the realm of science.
Really. Going pain. So I guess the question is, well, now the question is one of information and intelligibility, because obviously plants wouldn't communicate to us, not in our language. So how would we be able to receive that information from them, that they're suffering? Now that's, to me, that would be sure, like that's a question. That's a true, it's a worthy question, that how would we know epistemology? And well, we do know, there's been some fascinating studies, by the way, where by some Japanese researchers, I think, pioneered it, where they yelled horrible words, hateful words to a plant, and they gave like very loving words, and the response is very different. And you can find that on YouTube. They show you the study of the.
I think this one was debunked as well, but because I think there was another one where someone talked to water and said like nice things to water, and then there was another pot of
I
water
think
and they
with
said
water
nice
as well.
things to
But
water.
I do feel that with this there was a slight different. My theory on that wasn't so much about just the feeling, but part of it, I suppose, would include the feeling. But it was more so that when we are in a hateful state, that we emit a certain energy, and that energy may be harmful at a very subtle level, like perceptibly harmful. So, and where we are very loving, that we are emitting a kind of positive energy, even if we can't physically see it, but we are emitting it. And
Like
and that
literal
may, like
physical
literal,
energy,
like
like
just as
measured in joules, like
I don't know what we would measure it in, because we don't have an affectometer, so to speak, that would measure the release of these things. So, for example, we now know that the human heart emits at least 3 feet in all directions, if not some say 6 feet, a kind of magnetic field that the heart transmits larger than the brain. I mean, the heart's kind of magnetic field is very powerful. And now we know very recently in recent studies that humans do have magnetoreceptors, even though they're very latent, like we can't tell that we have them, whereas animals can tell things like their direction to north. But we do still carry the magnetoreceptors in our brain, but we just don't know how to use them. So they say something like, sometimes I think 3 out of 5 people can just tell which way is north, but they don't know how they can tell. So they think they're just guessing, but they actually we have magnetoreceptors. So when we have positivity and love, are we emitting, and does the emotion carry an actual energy? I would feel that emotions carry an actual energy, whether that's a magnetic charge, I don't know, whether that's something which we haven't yet fully understood. So when we have a negative energy, you can walk into a room and feel tension if it's a tense room. Why? There must be some charge that we can read, that we can detect. And so similarly, I would feel that this charge is what was impacting those plants. Like, when they were being like horrible to it, or they were being nice to it. That was my way of understanding that. And that would mean that the plant as a living thing can also pick up on the change of that energy, or whatever that wave is, or magnetic field, or whatever it is that's changing.
Yeah. So do you think it's equal to kick a flower versus kicking a dog? Do you think they're in the same place?
No.
So would you say that kicking a dog is like a lot worse than kicking a flower?
In the spectrum of things, of course.
Yeah. So
I
then
I wouldn't
think.
equate.
Yeah. So even
yeah.
even if we grant like plants suffering to some degree, like I don't think we can compare it to the amount that animals suffer, that we cause animal suffering. And also, I consume less plants than you do, because in order for you to you have to consume the animal first, and the animal consumes more plants than I do. So meat eaters, in the grand scheme of things, they're causing more plant destruction. They're causing death of more plants.
But you consume the food of the animals.
No, I don't, because
that's a joke. That's a joke.
because
so you're eating the cow's food and the animal's food. Well, we're at least saying no. You guys eat your own food. We'll just eat you. So
no, because you because when you increase the food chain, you're gonna get a lot of waste along the way. Like, it's less energy efficient. So when you're eating meat, you end up using a lot of water, a lot more feed. So you're wasting a lot of resources. And if the world went vegan, we'd actually have a lot more food to feed the entire population.
I think it's a fascinating discussion, and I really do. On that note, I do believe that with time we should merge in rulings like symbolic sacrifices. I know in the school of Medina an animal can be sacrificed, as the Prophet said, on behalf of the entire ummah, even, but at least on behalf of like entire households and more than households as well. And I do hope that we, where it's unnecessary and unwarranted and the sacrifices are symbolic, we can move towards things like that. We're less like during the Hajj or other places where people don't really need to sacrifice so much animal and they go to waste as well. Where we can keep things symbolic for the sake of, as the hadith mentions, the Prophet said, I do this on behalf of me, my family, my household, my whole and on behalf of my ummah, he said, I sacrifice this. So, and that's what the school of Medina took. So I do and also in that vein, there is a very interesting hadith somebody once showed me where a companion, it came to sacrificing, and he said, he couldn't do it out of mercy. Like he said, and the Prophet said, may Allah have infinite mercy on you, that you showed this mercy, that you had this mercy towards the animal. And that is, just the epitome and beauty of teaching that the Prophet ﷺ taught. And so I do, I think it's important, and I find it very admirable. Obviously, joking aside, in between, here and there, obviously you have to have a bit of, light-hearted humor. But this is a fascinating discussion, and it will be interesting to see how generations unfold, with this. Khair, Fahim, it's been an absolute pleasure today having this conversation. It's been I'm glad you stayed on, actually, and we spoke about so many interesting things. Salam.
There was obviously more I wanted to talk about, different topics, but we'll have to save it for.
I mean, we spoke about for so much, right? You'd have to save that now. We covered from philosophy to psychology to evolution to you name it. We kind of covered it. So alhamdulillah, I look forward to many more of these. You take very good care of yourself, Fahim, and we will speak soon. It's been a pleasure, and may Allah bless for you and all our viewers this year and all the years to come. Ameen. So take care, Fahim. Speak soon. Right? And Assalamu alaikum. Khuda Hafiz. People, that was Fahim. What an incredible conversation. I have to say, that's just been absolutely spectacular. I did love it, absolutely. So, right. Sorry, this just froze here for a moment. Right, I'll leave you with that. I was just hoping to have a brief 1.5 hour conversation. It's almost doubled in time. It's one of those things that they say, whenever you expect something, double the time and double the budget. That's closer to reality. So people, take very good care of yourselves. And those of you that do want to reach out, those of you that you can see on the ticker below, that if you'd like or need one-to-one consultations, you're more than welcome to visit patreon.com/Malm, and it's tier 2, and you can just go ahead and you can book yourself a one-to-one consultation, and we'll pick it up there. Other than that, take very good care of yourselves, people, and continue to really be a light for that positivity. And this discussion as well was really emblematic of just being able to engage dialogue regardless of where you stand, sometimes regardless of even the point of view, because it's not rehearsed. I mean, I had no idea these discussions were going to come up. I'm not even so sure where I stand on some of these discussions, but to be able to engage them and just explore them, this is, it is at the heights of the blessings of Allah, that kind of meaningful, conversational, dialogical exchange that you can have. And Sayyidina Umar, he said that muhadathatul ikhwan, it was from one of the greatest joys of life, that being able to hold those evenings in conversation. Right, guys, take very good care of yourselves. Salamullahi alaikum wa khuda hafiz.